He was called crazy behind his back. He is the survivor of the 79th level. He is also a former employee of the Moscow SDM bank, crossed by evil tongues into a BDSM bank. Vasya Farnheim was not always a survivor. And crazy, of course, too. At first, when Vasya was pulled by the devil to read The Marauder and hang out there for a couple of days, it seemed to others that the windy Popovkin was about to grimace right now, spit at his feet and, with his hands in his pockets, stomp through life with his head held high. Yeah, not like that. Finally, Vasya was flattened when he read the meaning of the book, the consonants of his surname. Yes, Farnheim's possession. Flattened, so much so that for the next 6 months he did nothing but amaze others with his eccentric antics. The sale of penthouses in Chertonovo, the acquisition of a plot of land, the construction of a ruined bunker at the level of 4 megatons to the neighboring toilet. In general, Vasily Plannova and inexorably went off the rails, ruined what he had acquired and sent his beloved, including his wife, mistress and superiors, who until yesterday somehow put up with the quirks of Podpravkin. In short, tonight, in preparation for the big Arctic fox, Vasily conducted another foray into neutral. The moon case is, as always, with invention and scope. Randomly, in the sense, completely by chance, the direction of the exit, its pace, profile and range were chosen. No one could say what it threatened the neighbors' datchas, fences, basements and the nerves of rare residents. I couldn't right away. But in the morning, usually around 12 in the afternoon, the tired section once again recorded the adventures of Plevekinsky Barabashka, the scale of destruction and, of course, the fantasies of witnesses to this miracle. He says that Vasya was too experienced. Experience has nothing to do with it. Animal instinct, and a slight madness helped him many times to penetrate like a knife through butter through the insides of houses, garages, sheds, leaving traces, but not prints. This was what the country gossips used, hanging more and more new fantasies on the local cast. This time, having checked his absolute lack of visibility, sinlessness and impunity, the inspired regime of God Vasily decided to fulfill the cherished standard, the passage of the infected area with partial and complete loss of vision. The first 200 meters, crossed by fences, sheds and dull plywood houses from Soviet times in the area, he slipped quite decently. Having run into a Barbosa named Barbos who habitually darted away from him and knocked the picket fence on raspberries under a snowdrift. But then Podpravkin hadn't gone that way yet, especially blindfolded and at night. Therefore, Vasya did not know yet that the summer resident who sold his plot to a nosy alien had already been buried at the local LTP and was diagnosed with a cold and cirrhosis. And the new owner turned out to be active. And who could have expected that someone would start digging a pool in winter? In short, Fortune Vasya today got tired of bending her neck to him and sent all the bounty of the Russian beauty a savory kick that threw Plevekin into the center of a fresh pit. Not only was it at an industrial depth of about 4 meters, there, at the bottom, despite the lightest frost, black water was cunningly hiding under the fluffy snow. She also closed Vasya in her arms. I must say that at night, Vasya was wandering around the village not just in anything, but in a farm from the store ghillie suits furry and terrifying. Now imagine the amazement of the nosy owner of the pool, when at 3 o'clock in the morning, being woken up by a howl of anguish, he lit up with a flashlight under the barrel of something swarming in the mud. Ah, darling, who are you here? The child of the mountains exclaimed, swallowed saliva and, raising the barrel for a joke, shot a charge of buckshot into the black winter sky. Who is here? I almost peed myself and, standing in a prayer pose, I made clawed front paws in the direction of the shooter. Gilly's wet rags had already stuck together and began to freeze into bizarre twigs. The one who closed his eyes after the shot and returned the beam of the barrel to the pit, saw a striking change in the stance and intentions of the monstrously grown-in-size dude. This gave his thoughts the right direction, and he began the premeditated genocide of Vasily. Since there were still 4 charges left in the time of the mountaineer, Vasily had to die 4 times and they live in different corners of the pool. Along the way, raising enchanting waves of mud, snow and primal horror. In parallel with this celebration of life, Vaja screamed so that Stillberg and Hitchcock would have strangled themselves in the school toilet in their youth and, of course, out of envy. His Vasily happiness was that the distance was scanty, which did not allow the grape shot fan to open. The shooter was still the same, and the instinct of self-preservation, spitting on decency, did wonders with Vaja's body. When Poprovkin heard the long-awaited fire and the dry click of the trigger, he realized there was a chance. Growling with all the might of a non-smoking organism at a mountaineer frantically jerking with a pump, he rushed towards him with all his might and in 2 fabulous jumps overcame an insurmountable obstacle before him. When Vaja's head poked out from behind the edge of the pool, and a pair of bony paws lay on either side of the crazy plexus of icy twigs, a Highlander would say tar. He threw the Remington at Vaja and jumped into the pool himself, a fish and over the head of a mid-level manager getting out of there. Hearing behind savory squelch, Vaja got rattled, hissed, well, he rushed home, knocking with his fingers, dropping pieces of dirty snow and pieces of clay along the way. Straight towards a new adventure. At the intersection of the next Sadovaya Vazina, the icy little body was suddenly blown away by the bumper, moving at an unauthorized speed within the settlement of the minivan. Against the background of a snowdrift illuminated by xenon, Vaja sprawled on the windshield of a minivan. He made an indelible impression on the driver, the cat and the bitchy-looking lady who was preparing for divorce. Moreover, for each his own. Due to the sudden braking, the cat stuck to the windshield in approximately the same position as Vaja, only from the inside, where she remained in silence until they both synchronously slid towards the right rearview mirror. The lady stopped raping the brain of the future bachelor, screamed heartrendingly and famously hopped him on the back of the head of a half-pound weight with a purse. The driver stepped on all the pedals at once. The car skidded and put on the starboard side. Vaja and the cat slid into the snow and ran away. But since the cat had nowhere to run, she hid in the folds of the skirt of the lady lying on her back and the most important graceful legs to the former starboard side of the car. Vaja ran into a snowdrift, covered with snow on old yeast, and now the Chupacabra looked like a yeti, which was moving away in huge leaps along a crooked street of a country village. The fallen picket fence, the crunch of the torn skin were only faint echoes of what Vaja uttered while breaking into the bunker. He could still get his fingers curled up from the cold in the code button. Apparently, anger at the world and at myself helped, but when it came to removing the icy skin, then Vaja began to state in absolutely non-literary language everything he thinks about the universe, the Highlander, himself and the women. What do women have to do with it? I would have answered, well, maybe the Lord. Well, Vaja didn't care about logic. Vaja wanted warmth. When the upper part of the chupacabra fell off and hung on what the owner's ass was with, he rushed to his treasure, a gas fireplace, and with shaking hands unscrewed the gas supply tap to full. Then Vaja started looking for a lighter. Along the way, he grabbed undiluted alcohol, and by the time he did click the crystal, the concentration of propane in the air coincided with the recommended one during explosions and other cheerful fireworks. Poprovkin found himself inside a white ball, which slowly expanded to the boundaries of Vaja's consciousness and burst. The upper part of the chupacabra fell off from Vaja immediately. From the rest, he jumped out himself in flight. What to do? Instinct and a feeling worked that Vaja could no longer get to the cherished fire extinguisher through the roaring flame, so he jumped towards the exit airlock, knocking the cherished 10-liter bottle of whiskey on the floor on the way for the blackest day. And now, standing barefoot in the middle of a clearing with a pile of foam, once called his possession, Blinded by the glimpses of fire trucks and police, Vaja realized that he had waited for everything for which he had been so steadfastly preparing. The full and merciless big scribe has come. However, only personally for Vasily Farhamovkin. And it was necessary to survive. Vaja sniffed busily and tried to hit the helmet of an astonished firefighter lying around with a piece of wood. Life went on and required warmth and action.